My partner is finally planning on proposing, yet I feel resentment and have no interest in saying yes. He promised he would get down on one knee years ago when I loved him, but now he's missed his chance. My partner bought the ring a long time ago. He previously insisted that we had to live together to see if we were compatible before he could propose and that he wouldn't propose otherwise. I have been ready for much longer than he has, and that's not his fault, of course. But after waiting and waiting, I have gone from anxiety to hope, to excitement, and finally just numbness. He didn't intend for me to know, but my sister, who helped him finalize the ring out of the ones I had liked, was happy about it and couldn't keep the secret that he's proposing in just under a week. It makes sense now that he was trying to get me to take a couple of days off to go away for a mini break to the town in which we met, but I couldn't get leave approved. She noticed that I've been feeling quite low throughout the holiday season, and she thought it was because I was waiting for a proposal. But the reality is that I gave up on it a month or two ago. I've tried to convince myself that it's what I still want, but that ship has sailed. It's quite strange to be in the process of falling out of love with him gradually. He's 29, and I'm about to turn 29. I fear I'm being irrational here, because in total we've been together for only 3 years. But he's been telling me for nearly 2 years that he will soon propose. I feel compelled to say yes now because everything is in place, but I don't feel in love with him anymore. He seems happy to talk about marriage now and has brought up marrying in autumn a bunch of times, and I wish I still felt the same joy at discussing wedding plans that I did before. Relevant comments. Comment 1. 3 years is nothing considering you could be spending the rest of your life with this person. Be glad you realize now. Response. I've only begun feeling this way because he kept saying a proposal was coming soon and didn't propose for 2 years. And his insistence on living together when he knew it was not something I was comfortable with without being engaged. Comment 2. To feel that much resentment after such a rather short time is a sign that you weren't right for each other anyway. Honestly, 3 years of dating and requesting to live with each other before marriage are totally reasonable, at your age. Objectively you are being a bit unfair here, but if you are just not feeling it anymore, so be it. It's better to end things now before the engagement. This is no base for a lifetime commitment. Response. I don't think feeling resentment after waiting for 2 years is soon at all. He said he would propose soon, and soon is not more than a few months. Certainly not over a year. He should have been honest that he wasn't ready instead of dragging this for 2 years. Comment 3. Looks as though you're blaming him for your choices. I think you need to communicate with him about the issue. Response. I don't believe I am, especially as he wasn't communicating clearly with me on the issue until a few months ago. Sometimes you do things that you feel will work out fine, but you don't realize until later how they will make you feel. I felt pushed into making that decision because of the various conversations that we had earlier this year, in which he shared things that he should have done a long time ago. Update. In the middle of 2023, he said he was proposing soon, but a year later, he still hadn't and finally admitted he wouldn't until we lived together, even though he had bought a ring. This was despite me asking him a couple of times what was holding things up, and he always assured me it would happen soon. After he finally shared this with me, he kept insisting I move in, even though I wasn't interested in that before an engagement. But I did because of how much I loved him, and the resentment had been slowly building up ever since. I know it's my fault for moving in, and I should have been firmer about my boundaries. He knew from very early on that I didn't want to set up a household or home with a partner without an engagement. Early in the relationship, 8 to 9 months in, he wanted me to move in, but I told him that I wouldn't do that with someone unless I was going to marry the person and was engaged. He said at the time that was okay and that he understood. So why did he say he was going to propose soon last year, knowing where we stood on this matter? Knowing he was going to propose and realizing I didn't want to marry him anymore, I told him on Saturday night that we couldn't be together anymore. He didn't take it well. He told me I had blindsided him and that he thought we both wanted a future together. He initially said he didn't know what he did wrong, and I had to explain to him that he knew we had issues regarding him always having his way and him knowing I was uncomfortable about moving in before an engagement. The truth is, whenever we disagree, I always end up giving in. He doesn't compromise and isn't very flexible. I pointed this out to him before, and he accepted that it was an issue, yet nothing changed. Now that I'm ending things, he's saying he'll work on it and it's not something to break up over. We could probably work through the resentment and improve our communication, but I don't know if I'll ever feel the same way about him again. Also, given that he kept saying he was proposing soon but waited for 18 months, I worry that he might again drag his feet when it comes to other things like having kids or even with planning the wedding. He woke up this morning, the 31st, the day he was planning to propose on as it's our anniversary, and said he couldn't believe what was happening. He said it didn't feel real because we should be getting engaged today, but instead, we were in the process of breaking up. He even asked at one point if we could try again, saying our relationship had been happy for both of us, and that living together we had been very compatible, irrespective of how I felt about moving in. He asked if I would consider giving the relationship another chance if we took a break from each other for some time. Again, I don't think this is a good idea. The days since I ended the relationship have been really tough, but it was the right thing to do because we are incompatible. People in my previous post mentioned that I just wanted to marry and get engaged and didn't care who to, but that's not true. My ex, whom I was with from university, was keen to marry me and brought it up soon after we started our first jobs. However, there were a range of issues in that relationship, and I didn't think it would work. So, after trying to resolve our issues and not being able to for a year, I had to end that relationship. If a marriage and engagement were all I wanted, I would have married him and ignored the issues. I genuinely thought my current partner, well ex now, and I were a great match, but I suppose I was wrong. I was living in a flat with a friend, and it was ideal for me in every way. I had to find someone to take over my lease, and I did this to move in with him. Now I have to start looking for a new place again. I've already started, and fortunately, I live in a city where finding a place won't be too difficult. My friend said I should not move out in a rush since I'm paying half the rent toward his place, but the reality is that this place never felt like home because I moved in begrudgingly. Again, I know it's my fault, but I can't live in what is essentially his home if we aren't going to be together. My sister said that I should think about the fact that I'm going to be 29 and about how it might be difficult to find someone to have children with before I hit my mid-30s, but it's better to be single than in a relationship that's not right. I know I might not meet anyone else anytime soon or at all, because you never know what life is going to bring, but that's okay. There are other things in my life that I plan to focus on, like studying for a post-grad diploma that I have been wanting to do for some time. I know he'll be fine soon as he's quite resilient, and then both of us can get on with our lives. Relevant comments. Comment 1. In this case, his hesitancy paid off because it allowed the op to realize that they weren't compatible for reasons unrelated to proposing. He was correct not to propose. It saved a future divorce. This wasn't his intent, but the overall issue here was the op wasn't happy with how decisions were made in the relationship, while the partner was. It took years for the op to express this. Now that she has, both can move on with their lives. In this case, the issue appears to be she didn't communicate with him the issues she was having. He was quite clear that he wanted to live with someone before getting married and proposed after a reasonable length of time after it occurred. Response. He was not clear about this and waited a year to tell me why he wasn't proposing. And this was after earlier in the relationship, when he wanted us to live together, I had told him I wouldn't live with someone unless the relationship was going to lead to marriage and I was engaged, and he said that was fine and continued the relationship. Comment 2. Did he need help with bills? Why did you need to move in and pay half? Response. He didn't need help with paying the bills, but I chose to pay as I think that's fair. I would not be comfortable with him picking up the bills for both of us when we both work. Comment 3. He didn't fight for you. You'll meet the one. You know now what you don't want, and that's a good start. Stick to your boundaries and goals, always. Response. He's been quite difficult since that day, particularly about me leaving and looking for somewhere to move, but I don't want him to make it any more difficult by fighting for me. Just can't wait to be out of this place.